Welcome to another Facebook Live. So excited to be here again. Let me just make sure that everyone can hear me and see me. Make sure that my phone doesn't fall in the middle of this live. That would be really something. Let me know if you're able to hear me and see me well, as usual. I did post a question before I went live, and I said, what topic would you like me to discuss tonight? And the choices were as follows. A, dealing with toxic family members, which is, we've discussed this multiple times, and yet this issue comes up again and again and again. B, jealousy. Or C, supporting one another. And someone brought in a very, very interesting point in the comment section. Michael brought in an interesting point, and he said, if you are able to support one another, then A and B are going to basically not be an issue. So if you're able to support each other, you won't be jealous of the person, and you won't have to be a toxic family member. It is 100% true. I totally agree with that statement. With that being said, I want to try to steer away a little bit from the topic of supporting one another. Even though it's a very important topic to discuss, it's a very broad topic. Because if we're going to narrow it down to family members specifically, we want to be able to address more of how do you deal with the people that don't support you. Because you can go ahead and discuss about how important it is to support one another, whether you're in a community member, and support your own kind, invite your own musicians, your own DJs, your own speakers, whoever it may be, support, be proud of it. Yes, 100%. I'm totally for it. But what do you do when you have people around you, especially people who are supposed to be your biggest cheerleaders? They're the ones who are supposed to root for you, but they become the ones who become by accident or on purpose your, I don't want to say enemies, because that's a very, very strong word, but they become the ones who make your life miserable. Instead of cheerleading for you and making you happy, they start to become that evil that makes you feel very, very down, negative, and just horrible. Why did this topic come about? So there were a few phone calls I got recently that I really want to share some of them. And one particular question that I read in another group, I think it was called Queen's Mama, of also a person addressing a very similar topic about family members and how she feels very, very negative and cold when she's around them, and yet she has to be there all the time because her kids go to the same school and she has to face this person on a regular basis. But before we go on that question, there was recently a phone call that was made to me by a young girl, and the way this girl was crying on the phone and talking about her relationship with a family member, it really broke my heart, because I realized to myself, how many people can relate to this girl's situation? If I go and I pinpoint 100 people in a room and I ask them, do you have a specific family member that you cannot get along with? Out of the 100 people in the room, I can safely say, and I'm just making a guesstimate, maybe 80%, 80 people are going to say yes. There is that one person in the family or in the close surrounding that makes my life miserable, or a living hell, if you want to say it in different terms. Why do you think that happens? I want to ask the people who are watching, why do you think that happens, that there are family members who are jealous, not supportive, cruel, can make remarks which are very, very hurtful, constantly have something negative to say. Why do you think that happens? I'm just curious to hear some of the comments. I want to hear what you think is the reason that so many people have this problem. While I wait for your responses, I'm going to tell you this particular situation. I'm going to try to change the details around, and we're going to try to basically get into the topic from this particular scenario. So this girl calls me up and she's crying and she's telling me how she's been married. I'm just going to make up a number just for her identity's sake, for about 18 years. And she says, I have a sister-in-law which cannot get along with me. No matter how much I try, she says. I try to be nice to her. I try to go to her house and make sure every time I come, I bring something. I never expect anything from her. Whenever we go out with the husbands, I'm the first one to hug and kiss her and say hello to her. Whenever it's a holiday, I'm the one that will be the first one to call and say, I'm so sorry if I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. I'm the first one to ask for an apology. But no matter how much I try, she continues to make my life miserable. She says it came to such a point that my husband and I are not on good terms. It came to such a point where I don't want to face her. I don't want to go to her house. I don't want to spend holidays with them. I don't want to go to anything that my husband wants to go, even though it's his brother, because every time I go there, I know I'm going to leave from there hurting. I'm going to leave from there feeling very, very, very upset. I'm going to end up having an argument with my husband. It's affecting my relationship with the kids because I'm a miserable mom. I'm not a happy person. I can't deal with this anymore. And I was listening to this poor girl and she was hysterically crying on the phone. That's case number one. Then I have another situation, a different scenario altogether, which is not a family member, but it has to do with the concept that we're talking about today. Another person calls me and tells me, I have a question for you. How would you deal with this situation? And she asked me to bring this topic, awareness, into this topic. She says she has somebody that sent her a picture of her husband. And she's asked this lady, is this man on the picture your husband? This lady posted him once upon a time on social media. And she said, yes, that's my husband. So this lady, who she doesn't even know, they don't know each other, just random person on social media, tells this other lady who posted her husband on social media and said, by the way, I saw your husband in this and this restaurant a month ago, sitting with a girl and having a conversation with her. So now the question is, if you saw him a month ago, you waited a whole month to let her know? How do you know exactly why her husband was out with this girl? Maybe it was his sister. Maybe it was his relative or his cousin. So this girl who she's saying to, I saw your husband with this and this girl and this restaurant, gets very upset. She says, why is she even telling me this? Is her motive to destroy my marriage? And she's, after I started questioning her because I got so mad and so upset, she blocks me. So if it really bothered her, if she really cared about me, why would she block me? So she asked me to also bring awareness to this topic of what right do we have trying to break other people's marriages, other people's lives, other people's relationships? At what point do we come and say, this is okay and this is not okay? And the more you think about it, the more there's one word which basically is flowing around this entire conversation. Maybe this word covers a lot of this conversation. And I think the word is jealousy. People who cannot find peace with themselves, seeing other people happy, or other people successful, or other people having a character trait which they see within themselves, but somebody else has it and they're productive with it, and their life is now, becoming successful as a result of it. For some reason, they find other people's growth as a threat to themselves. And these people will do whatever it takes to crash, diminish, and destroy the other person's reputation, life, marriage, happiness, and whatever else you want to name. This person, whoever these individuals are, and unfortunately, I don't want to sound negative, but I will say the truth. Unfortunately, sometimes, a lot of times, in certain cases, it can be your own family members. As sad as it is to say it out loud, and as much as we would like to stay positive and not have to bring darkness and always shed some positivity, unfortunately, sometimes those people are your own family members. Now, we cannot stop talking to them completely because we're not neighbors. Neighbors, you can move from a location. You can buy a different house. Jobs, you can switch your jobs. You can go to a different job. Location, you can change your location. But family members, it's very hard to change your family. So the question is, how do you deal with this type of a situation? So we're going to get our answer from my opinion, and it's only my opinion. I might be wrong, but based on these two situations, I want to tell you my opinion, and I'm very curious to know what you would answer to both of these ladies. The number one, the lady who called crying saying, my sister-in-law is ruining my life. I am becoming very depressed, very negative. I'm having major issues with my husband because I cannot seem to get along with her. Or number two, the person who decides to call the stranger who she never met and tries to now badmouth her husband to her, putting doubts in her mind saying, do you know your husband is out eating with some girl in this restaurant a month ago? How would you respond to both of these situations if they called you and said, what do you do in this situation? I'm curious to hear your responses, but I'm going to read some comments first. Okay, let's see. So, Benjamin says, sometimes people's souls are not at peace until they stir some problems. Totally agree with you, he says. It's jealousy. People tend to be miserable with themselves and they take it out on another person. Couldn't agree more with you, Benjamin. 100%. I totally agree. Unfortunately, hurt people hurt most. It's a phrase, and it really, really has a lot of truth and validity to it. There are people that are so miserable within themselves that the way to make themselves feel better is to make other people miserable. And then we have Nina, totally agree with you. It's jealousy. Thank you, Nina, for joining us. Vita. Okay, this is Russian. Let's see if I can read this. Нужно быть мудрой, не давать этим людям портить вашу жизнь. Желайте им добра и здоровья, и не принимайте близко к сердцу много зависти и негативных эмоций вокруг. So she says, Vita says that we have to not allow their negative energy to engulf us and not give it power. So I totally agree with what you're saying. So the first thing, let's address first the topic with the second scenario about the lady who called this girl that she doesn't even know her, she's on social media, and said to her that I saw your husband with a lady at this restaurant a month ago. Let's address that scenario first. Because first, when this question was presented, I thought to myself, maybe she's really looking out for her. Maybe she really wants her to be more aware that her husband is doing something inappropriate. But then as I thought about it, I said, if her husband really was trying to do something inappropriate, why would he do it in a restaurant where people would know him and would potentially report it to his wife? And if it really was the case, why would this lady have to wait one whole month and say, by the way, I saw your husband a month ago, and then report it? So there was something it doesn't make sense in this story. And then when this lady that she approached, the one who's on social media that said, this is my husband, she ends up blocking her, which means if you really cared about her husband, why are you blocking her? Finish your conversation. Explain to her, no, I have proof. I took a picture. This is the girl he was with. You have no proof. You don't know her, but yet you're going to come on to her, text her, because of what? Because you see her being successful. You see that she's a social media personnel. She's doing very well for herself. Life looks amazing and wonderful for her. So you know what? Let's take it down a notch. Let's give her something to worry about. So let's now make her start having doubts about her husband. Why? Why would somebody have the need to destroy somebody else's marriage for no reason whatsoever? If we really want to protect someone and we really care about the person and we really are doing it for one purpose, we care about you, then bring evidence. Don't block them when you see that they're not talking to you because they're very upset with what you're saying. Stay calm. Why are you waiting a whole month to approach the situation? This is where we get into jealousy. When people are jealous and they are not happy with other people's success, they're going to do whatever it is in their power to try to bring another person down. But what they don't realize is some people's marriages, love, relationships are so strong, are so tight-knit that nobody is going to come between them. And thankfully, nothing happened in this particular case, but this is not the first time I hear of this case. There was a case that happened to somebody I know personally many years ago, and it's mind-boggling that this even happened. But I know of a case where somebody decides to call someone I know and pretend to be the one who's having an affair with the girl's husband just because she wanted to destroy somebody's relationship. And it was a family member doing it to another family member. And that is not okay. It is not okay to destroy other people's marriages. It is not okay to destroy people's lives. Why are you so jealous? Why are you forgetting that everyone can be successful in life? You like their marriage? You like the love and bond they share with each other? Who's stopping you from having a loving marriage? Who's stopping you from having a bond? If life didn't go your way for whatever reason, because God had other plans for your life, whose fault is that? You can't make yourself a victim because now you have to quote unquote punish other people who are happy. Leave them alone. Let people be happy. Let people be successful. Let people grow. Let people be positive and shine light to the world. There is no need to crush people. Eugene, you have to put jealous, toxic people in their place firmly but politely. Takich людей надо ставить на место. You're right. You see, the thing is, when you try to put these kind of people to their place, they start to play victim. They start to become very confrontational because sometimes these kind of people, they're not very good in in constructive criticism. They're not very good in understanding their faults and their mistake. People like this are considered like vicious type of people who are going to do everything in their power to destroy someone else's life at whatever cost and price it's going to take. And that's very, very sad. And a lot of people are struggling with these type of people in their life. Now, again, the second scenario was not a family member. It was a random stranger. Now we're going to go to case number 1, which is the family member, the sister-in-law problem. So this girl, who I said before, who was married for many years, has a husband, and she's been having major problems with her husband's brother's wife. And she says whenever she tries to be nice to her, no matter what she tries to do, she does not find common ground. What does this lady do? Malka wrote, sooner or later, those people will get what they deserve. 100% Malka. Those are such smart words. You see, I really do agree with you. I believe in karma. You know, what goes around comes around. And people don't realize that if you try to break someone else's marriage for absolutely no reason, you got to be very scared and careful, because it's going to come back and bite you, because God sees everything. And if God sees that you're doing this viciously for no apparent reason but to break someone's life, it's going to come back to you. Okay, Arthur Rubinov. First, we have to change ourselves. Those 3 topics would die out. It's true. What smart people used to say, you are what you eat. We eat too much baran and become Stada Baranov. Okay? Blessings to everyone. Okay, Arthur, I actually, I hear what you're saying. We have to change ourselves first, and I'm actually going to get to that now. But my change yourself first is actually going to be a little bit different. I'm going to let you know in a second. Esther, that person that does this is not worthy of our attention. Smart people will know not to be shaken by the outside noise, whether that noise is real or not. Okay? Keep your internal peace. I've had and heard similar experiences. Be okay with shining regardless. Beautiful. Okay. Arthur, I want to address your comment when you say we have to change ourselves first. This is the kind of change that I would suggest to the person who had this situation with the sister-in-law. This is the change. We can never change people. Period. Bottom line. End of story. We think we can change certain people. There are going to be people that come into our life that have certain character traits and characteristics, and we think by responding a certain way for long periods of time, we're going to eventually change those people. We're not. The only person you can ever change is yourself. Let me say that again. The only person you can ever try to change is yourself. You're not going to change your sister-in-law. You're not going to change your brother-in-law. You're not going to change your mother-in-law. You're not going to change your daughter-in-law. Bottom line. So what do? You change the way you respond to those people. The way you respond to the individuals who are jealous, have nothing better to do than stir up drama, can't accept you for one reason, and one reason only, because it's you, and your mere existence to some people is a threat. Point blank. It's unfortunately, reality for certain situations, not everybody's. You exist, you grow, you're doing well, you have a loving relationship or marriage, you have a beautiful, respectful spouse. Somebody else is going to find that as a threat to themselves. Somebody else is going to find that bothersome to themselves for no apparent reason. Now, you cannot live your life now trying to be less successful, trying to have less of a beautiful marriage, trying to be less loved by people, trying to be less whatever it is, because now you want to have that person love you more. That's going to be going reverse. All you can do is say, whoever is not happy with me, I cannot change that about them. That's something they have to work on themselves. That's something they have to work on for whatever it is, past trauma, insecurities, jealousy, whatever they have within themselves, that's their problem. That's something they lack. I cannot allow my life to be destroyed and be engulfed in this negativity and constant emotional stress for the lack of other people. What we have to learn to do is change the way we respond to those people. The more you respond and the more you allow them to win and be over you, the more they're going to continue, quote unquote, destroying your life. The more you say, I've had enough. I'm not going to give you any more power. I'm not going to allow myself to give you any more attention than you deserve. The less you pay mind and attention, the less those people are going to affect you at all. You have to form, exactly, Esther, a healthy boundary. That does not mean you don't have to ever talk to them, that you don't have to ever see them, you don't have to ever go to their house. You can't not do that because you have brothers, you have sisters, you have family members. You have to be able to go there with your head up high. You have to be able to go there and not allow that look to affect you, that comment to affect you, that silent treatment to affect you. The person wants to give you the silent treatment. You said hello, you walked away. That's their problem. The person wants to give you a stare, a dirty look for no reason whatsoever. You shook your head, you said hello, you walked away. That's their problem. The person wants to ignore you. The person wants to do any kind of gossip behind your back. That's their problem. After a while, you have to learn that you're not going to change that other person. That other person is going to continue to be miserable with themselves, because people who are miserable with themselves are the ones who have to make other people miserable. And the reason I say it so, the way I say it, is because it's not a one-time situation. It happens so often, constantly, getting calls after calls after calls, people crying on the phone, complaining, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law. Why? Why does it have to be this way? Why is it that we have forgotten, not everybody, we're not talking about everybody, but there's a lot of people that have forgotten what it means to truly love each other. Love each other and be happy for one another. You have somebody in your family who's growing, who's advancing, who's becoming successful in a career. She graduated school. She drives a car. She built herself a house. Her husband is giving her love and showering her with attention. Why does that have to bother you? Why should it have anything to do with your life? Live your own life without having to interfere with other people's lives. And if you have somebody like that in your life, Do yourself a favor. Boundary. Because if you cannot form that boundary in yourself and you're going to absorb their energy on a constant basis, you're going to end up really being drained, mentally being drained. Every time you're going to be put in the same room as that other person, what's going to happen? You're going to start having heart palpitations. Your heart is going to start racing. You're going to start having sweating. You're going to start having panic because you're going to realize the energy that person is giving you is making you feel sick. So you have to distance yourself. If that person makes you feel sick to the point where you're having palpitations and you're nervous, you can't keep doing this to yourself. You have to form a boundary. Eliminate your interaction with that person. And the husbands have to understand. It hurts and breaks my heart to see, yes, of course, brothers should always remain brothers. You should never have to come in between brothers or sisters, a parent. Somebody cannot tell you, a daughter-in-law shouldn't tell their husband, I don't let you go to visit your mother. What do you mean? It's his mother. Unless the mother is literally putting negative thoughts constantly into her son against his wife, that becomes a major issue. But if you don't have, if literally it's just you not liking his mother, form your boundary. Keep your distance. Be at peace. But that doesn't mean your husband cannot go visit his mother. Same thing here. If the two sister-in-laws are not getting along, and one of them is miserable on a constant basis, crying her heart out, how can a husband tell his wife, what do you mean you can't hug and kiss her? Why don't you hug her? Why don't you kiss her? Why don't you say hello to her? Coming and putting so much pressure on the wife. Don't you see she's struggling? Don't you see she's miserable? At one point do you say, my wife and her sanity and her health and her mental state is more important to me than to have a fake relationship for everybody in the world to see, oh, look how close they really are. But they're not. They're miserable. They're not getting along. They're hating on each other. And for you just to make the world see how happy they really are fake, this is not right. The husband should put, like Eugene, 100% right, he has to put his wife's feelings first. If this is toxic, allow her to be distant from her sister-in-law. If this is ruining her life and her marriage and her ability to be a normal mother to her kids, allow her to form a distance from her. Be close to your brother. Call him. Go out to dinner with him. Why not? But do not pressure the two wives who are butting heads with each other on a constant basis. Do it over and over and over again. And then there's some people that are going to question and say, but what about peace? Aren't you supposed to make peace? Sometimes peace is just a distance. A peaceful distance is also peace. When you have peace of mind, when you're able to just sit at the same table after a long time, just because you have no choice, you're going to the same wedding, you're going to the same bar mitzvah, you're going to the same party, and you happen to have to be sitting next to each other on the table. Hi, how are you? Mind your own business, less interactions with one another. That's golden. But just to pretend that everybody is so peaceful, meanwhile you hate each other, you can't stand each other, you're miserable with each other, and you have to constantly attend family gatherings just because you don't want everybody else to know and you want to portray a fake image of your peace. Meanwhile, you come home and you're having the most miserable state of mind. That is not healthy by any terms. And if you happen to be that sister-in-law who's watching and by accident making your other sister-in-law miserable, Let me tell you something. Be very, very careful. Because if you are miserable and you're making other people miserable, and those people are very innocent, they never hurt you. They never did anything to you. They never ever gave you the opportunity or the reason to hurt you, but you hurt them and you hate them simply because you can't stand your own insecurities. Every tear that sister-in-law is going to shed, be careful. Tears have power. And God forbid, I don't wish it upon anybody. God forbid, you don't want God to get upset to such a point where you're going to come and all those tears are one day going to come against you. We have to be very careful, sensitive to each other. It's not cool anymore. It's really not fun anymore walking around and for no reason whatsoever just hating another person. And who is that other person? Your family member? Your sister-in-law? For no reason? Why? What are you gaining from that? Absolutely nothing. Leave her alone. And I'm saying this to the sister-in-laws who are watching, nobody particular. Leave her alone. You didn't have a good marriage. It's very unfortunate. It's nobody's fault. Your husband doesn't love you. It's nobody's fault. It's not her fault. You don't get gifts from your husband or your wife. It's not her fault. Her mother-in-law loves her more. It's not her fault. Why? Why be jealous? Why be miserable? Why be evil? It's just not cool. So I really hope, I don't know if this was educational at all. It was more of a venting session for those that, getting phone call after the phone call. It starts to really, it hurts. Maybe it hurts more because there is a little bit of a personal, once upon a time, I've dealt with these type of issues too, unfortunately. So I understand where this pain and frustration can come from. And it becomes a point where you have to learn that in order for you to be a stronger version of yourself, God has to put certain people in your life. And those people come into your life for one reason. They make you a better version of yourself. They may think they're destroying you. They may think they're putting you down. They may think they're negatively affecting you, but they don't realize they're actually empowering you, making you stronger, more resilient, better and better every single day. So sometimes we have to stop and say, thank God. God put you into my life to make me where I am today. Because had I not gone through those challenges, not me, I'm saying a person, had a person not gone through those challenges in their life with those toxic family members, with those toxic sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws, daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, family member, they wouldn't be able to form that barrier, to have that gate of strength and say, enough is enough. I'm not going to let you bully me anymore. I'm not going to let you win over me anymore. I'm not going to shed any more tears. I got this, and I'm going to move on with my life, and I'm going to love myself. Even if you don't love me and accept me for who I am, I don't care about that anymore. Because as long as I love myself and accept myself and I'm happy with myself, I'm not going to let you keep making me feel that I'm not worthy enough. Because unfortunately, when we have those toxic family members, The goal is to make us feel that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy enough, that we don't have what it takes. Who are we? What do we think we are? What's such a big deal about us? No, we don't need your acceptance because we are great. We are amazing. We are capable. We are beautiful. We are strong. We may have some negative traits within ourselves, and guess what? That's okay. Who doesn't have negative traits? Who is all perfect? We're not angels. Yes, we have flaws. And you know what? So do them. So just like they're not perfect, we're not perfect. And we're going to accept ourselves just the way we are. Now I'm going to read some comments. Let me know, by the way, if you found this to be helpful at all. I'm just talking. Okay. Romashka Davidov. The answer is very simple. Rishchori has no limits. It is a disease, and there is no drugs to cure. I think that's an amazing comment. You always have the funniest comments, by the way. 100% agree. Rishchori, which is jealousy, another word for jealousy, it definitely has no limits. And it's really like, it's very hard. You know, I know that there's two types of jealousies. Jealousy is a character that was created for a reason. Every character traits that we have, there is a positive and a negative to it. So there is a positive jealousy. What's a positive jealousy? Wow, I love how you organize your table and everything is ready and prepped. Your kids are on time. They go to sleep on time. You manage to always look put together. It's like a good jealousy where I wish I was like you. And you go to this person for advice on how do you do it? Can you teach me how you do it? How do you pass your tests on your exam? I'm in the same program as you and I keep failing. That's a good jealousy. You see something good in a person and you communicate that. It's like, can you teach me how to be like that? Another type of jealousy is where we see a person succeeding, growing, being happy, being successful and smiling and doing whatever it takes. And all of a sudden we feel like, who are they to be that way? Who are they to be so successful and to finish her exams and to get such a well-paying job and to have a husband or wife who loves her and listens to her while my husband doesn't love me at all and doesn't ever buy me a gift? Who are they to buy such a big, beautiful house and I have to work so hard? Well, instead of questioning and hating on the other person, that kind of a person, in my opinion, needs to stop and say, have a conversation with God. Ask God, God, why did you allow my sister-in-law, for example, to buy a house like that? You should have allowed me to buy a house like that. Don't you see how hard I work? God, why is my husband never loving me and her husband loves her? What, you don't see how much I want my husband to love me like that? This type of a conversation, as funny as it sounds, really needs to be addressed to God. Because everything that happens in a person's life happens because God wants it to happen that way. So if you have a problem with your sister-in-law or brother-in-law or other in-laws growing, being happy or successful, address your concerns with the one above because he's showering them with blessings. And unfortunately, they deserve it and you don't. And that's the sad reality. We can't make them miserable now because we don't seem to agree with their success. Okay, let's see. Jana, how do people have energy for that? Yeah, you know, some people, their energy comes from drama and feeding off of other people. This viciousness gives them a lot of energy because that's what makes them feel better about themselves. So yeah, unfortunately, that's how it works. Yaakov, a person should surround himself with positive people. Ideally, yes, 100%. But unfortunately, sometimes we don't choose our surroundings. We get married and we love our husband or our wife, and comes with that sometimes a package which we didn't choose the person that it comes with, but for the peace and tranquility of our own marriage, there are certain things that we have to deal with. And the question is, how do we deal with that? So absolutely, positive people is definitely who we should surround ourselves with. Okay. Yonatan Nisanov, much needed conversation, hard to change people. One has to change themselves. Absolutely. Absolutely, Yonatan. It's very hard. I know I said we can never change people. Of course, I'm exaggerating. We can change people that want to be changed. That's probably the right way to say it. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So when people don't acknowledge their mistakes, their flaws, their imperfections, what they have to work on, and they deny it, those people are not going to change. Only people that admit that they want to work on something, those people can change. Okay. A lot of comments. Hold on. Let me go to the end. Jenna, I come home beat and think what to make for dinner and homework and have zero energy to spend on my negativity, on such negativity. That's great. That's beautiful. Violetta, I love you for speaking about this, Yocheved. I hope that people that need to grow up and hear this actually hear this. That's another challenge. People that need to hear this actually hear this. You see, the problem is many times people that are guilty of acting this way, people that are the ones that are the culprit of instigating drama, picking on fights for no reason, making other people's lives miserable on purpose, many times they play victim. They play like they're the ones who are the victims. They're the ones that the other person is like being negative to. They're not the problem. It's her. It's not me. That's the problem. The ones who need to hear this, the ones who have the problem, they don't admit to it. They don't admit that they have a problem. You know, the tactic, a lot of the people that have this issue, that deal with this, what they do, the minute you approach them and say, and you try to have a conversation with them, and you try to rationalize with them, and you try to explain to them, stop, why are you acting this way? They block you. They will block you on social media. They will block you on WhatsApp, on Messenger. They will not pick up the phones on you. They will block your children from coming to their house or send their children to your house. They start to play victim. That's why I was saying before, when I was having this conversation, that you can't change those people. You can't. No matter how much you try to have a rational conversation with them and really say, listen, I love you, I want to have a peaceful conversation with you, it doesn't always work. So what do? You have to change yourself. Change how much power you're giving that person, how much you're allowing that person to affect you mentally, how much you're allowing that person to get into your mental space. Just like you have to pay rent where you live, that person should have to pay rent to have a part of your thought process, to have a part in your brain. Shoo them out every time they come in and you start to feel this negative energy and palpitations and frustration. Remove that. Get rid of it and say, I am not giving this person any more energy than she already deserves. I choose to have a peaceful relationship within myself. I choose to love myself. I choose to accept myself. I choose to accept all the flaws that I have. Yes, I'm not perfect. I might have made a mistake. I might not live my life the way she expects me to live my life, or raise my kids the way they expect me to raise my kids. But at the end of the day, I am doing the best that I can do. And I choose to love my husband. I choose to love my wife. I choose to love my children. And as long as I am doing the best I can as a wife, as a husband, as a mother, as a father, as a daughter, that's all I can do is my best. The rest is not up to me. And if there's really something you could change, change it if it's a valid point. But otherwise, don't eat yourself up. Don't beat yourself. Don't get into this emotional anxiety and depression for others. It's not worth it. Life is short. In Hebrew, they say, Im ein anili mili. I don't speak Hebrew, but I know that phrase, and it means, if I am not for me, who is going to be for me? So we got to learn to be our biggest cheerleaders, our biggest advocates. Wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, remind yourself how wonderful and great you are. Positive affirmations. I got this. I am amazing. I am beautiful. I am talented. I'm courageous. I have so much potential. Give yourself a pat on the back sometimes. We don't do that enough. We wait for so much of the world to compliment us, to put a like. No, you gotta do it to yourself. You gotta train yourself to love yourself. Once you love yourself more and you accept yourself more, then those negative people around you are not gonna even interfere with your life, because you're gonna walk in with your shoulders high, confident. You're going to have what it takes. And you know what? They're not going to bully you anymore, because they're going to see there's no point to do that. You were at such a higher level mentally, emotionally, physically, that there's no point to waste time on you. No point. And they're eventually going to leave you alone, and you are going to live a nice, peaceful, happy life. This was fun. Joe Levy, there is no enemy within the enemy outside can't hurt you. I don't understand what that means. Can you please clarify? There is no enemy within the enemy outside can't hurt you. Not sure I understand what that means. And Riva, you are amazing. God bless you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Riva. Appreciate that very much. I don't even know how long we're on. How long am I on live? Oh, it's been an hour already. Ooh, wow. I didn't think it was going to be this long. Esther. Okay, let's see what Esther wrote. People can change, hence the evidence or mandates. Okay. Or they are so twisted or traumatized, they are in domestic abusive relationships, they don't even realize it, that they don't see the mirror neuron effect at play, and they project it onto others. Absolutely, Esther, exactly. Hurt people hurt people. So people who are hurt inside, and they may be experiencing past traumas, you may be reminding them, let's say a sister-in-law relationship, right? Back to our first example. If your sister-in-law doesn't like you and she can't stand you, and you're like, what did I ever do to her? I didn't even do anything to her. You may remind her of a person that she couldn't get along with in 2nd grade or in 8th grade. And you have the same exact personality, the way you talk, the way you move, your whole demeanor is reminding her of that 8th grade classmate. Now, it's not your fault. You have nothing to do with that 8th grade situation that she experienced, but unfortunately, you get caught up into this mess, because now she remembers the trauma she felt with somebody that had your personality in 8th grade, and now all of a sudden she's hating on your personality for absolutely no reason, that it's you, because you remind her of that person. Okay, let me see. hold on. I'm about to wrap up, but I think, sorry, there's no enemy within. The enemy outside can't hurt you. Right, the enemy outside can't hurt you if you don't allow them to hurt you. But if you allow them to hurt you, then she's going to hurt you. If she gets caught up on this mess, then she needs therapy. Absolutely, Bella. 100% agree with you on that as well. Unfortunately, many people don't go for therapy and they live their life without healing, and that's how it becomes a mess. So I'm now going to go. Have a good night. This was very interesting. I thought this was a good conversation. If there's anything else you would like to add, please comment. I may not respond to every comment, but I definitely see all your comments. I read all your comments. I always enjoy hearing your feedback, your thoughts. If this message hurt anybody by accident for whatever reason, I apologize. I did not mean to hurt anybody by accident. This is not a therapy session. I am not giving anybody advice, so please take it with a grain of salt. I am just sharing my views, my thoughts, my opinions. So if there's something you don't 100% agree with, totally okay with that. Feel free to share your views, your thoughts. I'm sure other people would love to hear your comments as well. Until next time, have a good night, everybody.